Hey everybody, and welcome back to the board meeting. Today I'm going to be doing something I haven't really done at all. And this is going to be just kind of like a rambling, storytelling kind of how I got into the board gaming hobby. What started me off and my journey into this hobby of ours. And first of all, as a kid, I played all your regular games, your Monopoly, your Sorry, your Life, stuff like that. My family played occasionally. I wouldn't say a lot because I don't know if any of us enjoyed those games. And I do not enjoy Monopoly and stuff like that. As I think most people who play modern games, I don't think anyone actually likes Monopoly anymore. But what I would say my first experience into modern gaming was I had friends in middle school and high school that I would go over there and we would play the game Settlers of Catan, which I think a lot of people got into board gaming through that. And that game it blew my mind. I'd never played any game that was probably the first game that I had any kind of strategy that I actually played. And it's not like Catan's got a lot of strategy, but back then I thought, wow, that game is amazing. And I would be calling them like, hey, you guys want to play Catan today? And the majority of the time they would say yes. So Catan was kind of my first experience into modern gaming. And then after high school, after I had graduated, I didn't really play any games at all for several years. I had a traveling job. I probably didn't play a board game for 4, 5, 6 years after high school. And after I had quit my traveling job, I had moved back to small town North Dakota. And then I started playing games occasionally. You know, friends would ask me, hey, you want to come over and play a couple games? And that's when I started playing games like Seven Wonders or Splendor, games like that. Nothing too hard or anything. And even then, we weren't playing a lot. This was maybe 6 or 7 times a year I'd have a game night kind of deal. And at the same time, my family, we'd play card games like Hand and Foot. If any of you have played Hand and Foot, we still play that at least once or twice a month, my family. We love Hand and Foot. They're not big into board games, but I can get them to play Hand and Foot anytime. And then this was a few years back, I decided I was going to quit drinking. And if you don't know, I am from a small town in North Dakota. And what do we do here in small town North Dakota? We drink hard, and we drink a lot. And when I decided to quit drinking, I went from being extremely social to being out and hanging out with friends quite a bit to just being home. And home a lot. I went from social to being almost like a hermit. So it was just me and my kid kind of hanging out all the time. And I was trying to find hobbies to fill my time because I was getting bored. I had nothing to do, wasn't hanging out with a lot of people. And then a friend actually invited me to come play a game with him and his friend at the office. He's a lawyer, so we play at his office every once in a while. And so he invited me to play games with him and his high school and college aged sons. And I get along with them all. So, absolutely. I like board games. I'll go play some games with you guys. And we played for that night. And after we got done, we all had a good time. So we decided, hey, you want to do this again next week? So we set it up, played games next week. And then, hey, let's do that again. So we started meeting weekly then. And then after a bit, I actually went on a vacation. And whenever I go on vacation, I go up to Canada. Canada is my vacation spot, which seems weird. And what's weirder is I go up in winter. And I went up to Canada for 3 weeks. And it's because I'm a hockey fan. And I wanted to go watch the Toronto Maple Leafs play a few games, watch some minor league games, watch some junior hockey. And so I was traveling up in Canada for about 3 weeks. And about every other day, I had a hockey game to go to. And in between those days, I would travel around the city or explore these new areas. And what I found in Canada was something that I had never seen before, and that was board game cafes. So every other night I was going to these board game cafes. And what blew me away, this was the first time I'd seen lots of games. I didn't know there were that many games in the board gaming hobby. I didn't know it was actually a hobby even. I just thought it was something occasionally that people did. I didn't know there was thousands and thousands of games. I thought I had actually played probably the majority of games that were out there, the good ones. But no, not even close. So I'd go to these cafes, and I go on my vacations alone because I'm weird. I like to travel alone, explore alone, do my own thing. But I'd go to these cafes, these board game cafes, and I would just sit down and like look at these games. And every single night, people came up to my table. I see you're alone. You wanna come play board games with us? And I would go play board games with these random strangers that I had just met, and we had a blast. So right away, the board game community blew me away of how accepting they were, and hey, come with us, come have fun. So every other night I was doing that. And then I was up in Calgary, and I went to this one place. It was called, I think it was called the Century Box or something like that. Huge board game store. Absolutely giant. I still haven't seen a game store that big to this day. And I ended up buying like 5 games or something like that, which one of them was Architects of the West Kingdom, which I absolutely love. And so I bought 5 games, which doubled my collection at home, So I got back to the States, and I was like, oh, these games will occupy my time for months, years maybe, who knows. And then at our board game group, our weekly group, one of my friends started coming, and he kept talking about this game, Scythe. And I was like, well, bring it. And if you can teach us, I'd love to play it. And he ended up bringing it, and we were setting it up. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't think I could play this. I'm too dumb to learn this. But he started explaining the rules, and everything started kind of making sense. It's like, oh, that's okay. It's not too bad. It's not too complicated, I guess. And after we had gotten one round through the game, I was infatuated. I loved it. I went on Amazon and I bought it after one round of play because I liked it so much. And then after that, we ended up playing Scythe for a good couple months where we were playing it all the time. And in fact, I had all the expansions except for the Rise of Fenris campaign, which then I bought. And then we played a 7-player campaign of Scythe, the Rise of Fenris campaign, which is an 8-episode campaign. And we went through that fast. We went through it in less than a month, I believe, at a 7-player count, which each of those games takes probably 3 hours with 7 players. So yeah, we were obviously all infatuated. And that's kind of, everything started cascading from there, where I was playing games, buying games, learning games, and that kind of started. I would say Scythe was almost my gateway into the hobby. I'd played a couple games here and there, like I said before, but as soon as I played Scythe, that's what enthralled me, threw me headfirst into this hobby, where now I have well over 300 games, and I'm constantly giving away games, selling games and stuff like that. But yeah, I've got this huge collection, and I blame Scythe for that. But that is kind of how I got into the hobby. And nowadays I'm playing like 3 or 4 games a day, because I keep track of my board game plays now. That's how nerdy I am with this stuff now. I keep track of my board game plays. And last year was the first year that I kept track, and I averaged out to something a little bit over 3 games a day that I was playing. And some of them are your smaller card games that take 15 minutes, but yeah. So, and now I'm learning probably 3 or 4 new games every single week. And on a good week, if I'm really motivated or friends want to play, I've sometimes learned 20 new games in a week. It just depends on the week. But that's how I got to where I am currently as a board gamer. That's kind of my story. But I would love to hear how everybody else got into the hobby. What's your story? What was maybe your gateway that pushed you into this hobby? I would love to hear from every single person. But I think that will adjourn this meeting and wrap this up. I hope you all have an amazing day, and take care, everyone.